Can you please welcome Michael to the podium?
All right. Fun fact. I actually work for Atlassian on the design system. Triplex isn't a company. It's my side project. But I guess it's going to look great. And uh, it looks like it should be its own business, maybe. Um, so if you do have your laptops here and you'd like to, I guess, play along, do some coding, help me survive trying to do some live coding up here, feel free to get yours out. I have surprisingly a little keynote on the side next to VS Code. It was quite niche to get this working, but I did it. I've got the thinnest keynote slide you've ever seen. And yeah, if you follow that QR code or you just go to like Google Triplex SydJS, you'll see that. But anyway, I'll leave it up and join in if you want or not. Today isn't really a presentation. It's more of a demonstration, live coding, have some fun. So quick raise of hands. Who's heard of react-three-fibre? Okay, so for those who haven't heard of react-three-fibre, it is a React reconciler for Three.js. So basically, you can make cool 3D shit with React. And as I use React for my day job, which is on the design system team at Atlassian, and I also like 3D stuff and computer graphics. And like everyone else in tech, I wanted to get into game development way back in the day. Having a kid and then having paternity leave is a good mix of free time to start dabbling, and dabbling I have. So, go away. What are you doing? That's fine. Anyway, I should also say what Triplex is. So imagine maybe you're building any kind of 3D scene, but you only have to do it in code, and how annoying that is. Probably the best thing to think of is think of Storybook, and this is kind of a better Storybook, but for 3D stuff. So it's exists as its own app, but I've been working on a VS Code extension where you can kind of have a visual editor brought into view in VS Code. So our favorites editor. This thing's annoying. I wonder if it can go away. Maybe I'll do this. Yes. Wait. All right, got there. So Triplex is a visual editor, and what does that mean? It means that your source code powers the editor. So I've opened the circle component, and it has populated the editor with all the JSX elements in it, and then you can both obviously see it as an editing experience, but also see all the controls that are available. So for example, if I were to go to the material and search for color and then change the color, it updates in the editor. And then if I save, it goes back to source code. And that's kind of the whole, hello, question? Also, I love questions, by the way. Like, I really don't want to do a presentation. I just want to hang out and do some coding. So if you do have questions, feel free. That's okay. Does that work? Okay, cool. So I made some changes and our source code was updated when I saved. I also can undo. So for example, I didn't like that. I can just undo, save, and I'm back to the previous state. Now, like, I don't know if you're familiar with general React development, but this is kind of, like, I think it's pretty neat and very niche in the ecosystem, to be honest. Like, there's a few competitors in the React DOM space. For example, Codex is one that's backed by Wix, but there's nothing for react-three-fibre because I guess it's like a niche on a niche, but it's still infinitely cooler because it's all 3D. So going from here, the main thing I want to do is orient us of what Triplex is, and then we're just going to kind of make stuff. And today what we're going to be making is this, I guess, little scene, right? And we're going to be using react-three-fibre, UI kit, Triplex. All right, the keynote forwards on, and a few other bits of tech to accomplish that. So for this circle, right now, it takes a position and a size prop, but I want it to take a color prop. So what I'm able to do is in my source code, just update it. And then now it takes a color prop. So if I go into component controls, which allow me to change the props it takes as a dev time tool, I'm now able to change the props it takes just to see and visualize what it's doing. So that's neat. And it's given me an unbounded prop, but I want to bind this to specific values because I'm from the design system team. We're all about constraints and making things only do what they should do. So we're able to, for example, if I wanted to limit this to just red, thank you, AI, all these values, it's now updated to a list. So for example, I can give it red, blue, and so on. And that's fine, but again, I want it my values. So by copying and pasting code that I already have in this file, I'm able to get it accessing some specific palette values that match the exact values that I want. And I'm going to say it's a required prop, and then all done. So now we've got pink and purple, but it's the specific values that I'm interested in. Now, the main premise of this is the editor and the code are intermingling. They're hanging out, they're best friends. You change one, the other updates. And I think it's pretty neat. So we've implemented a new prop. We've seen that the, let's say, editor controls can update to whatever we need it to do. Now what's next? Well, I think we should open another component.
Oh, we have a question.
Hello. Yep. Yeah, it's sick. See? It's cool. Yeah, like if you, again, like obviously no one's really doing it right now, but if you have a spare 5 minutes, definitely go to that repository, install the extension, and have a play. The main premise is you don't add any code to power the editor. It's just TypeScript. So like there's no configuration here. I'm just literally opening a component. And the neat thing about that is there's no maintenance overhead, right? Like you're just developing. You don't have to have any dev time checks to say, if I'm in the editor, do this. Else, if I'm on a prod build, do that. It's just transparent. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So the question is like, what's running in the background? How's this all working? Basically, to paraphrase, and it's complicated, but it's all internal. So it's running Vite, it's running the TypeScript compiler, it's running a Node.js server. It has watches listening for file system updates, and then it's all reconciling it internally. So again, I'm literally just running a VS Code extension. There's no command that I've run before this to start a server. It's all transparent. And there's also an app as well, triplex.dev. Check it out. Anyway, I'm basically just shilling my side project, but I thought it'd be fun to do some react-three-fibre and kind of hang out. So, you know, or we could talk about large language models. I'm just kidding. There's nothing here. That's for the next talk. So if you've ever built anything with React or really any JSX-powered HTML-like system, this will be very familiar. So I've already kind of prepared a UI kit mobile scene. And what we want to do is basically just start fleshing it out. So we want to add some stuff and get it working. So we'll see what happens here. So anyway, let's just make some text, I suppose. So I've already got some how it's going. So we're going to do that, see what happens. Got an error, that's okay. All right, we got some text rendering, fantastic. And again, we want to kind of make it like the one on the right. So let's say, welcome to Tao Show. Also, full disclosure, I have no idea what Tao Show is. It just looked cool on Dribble, and I'm like, sick, I'm going to make it. It's nice and pink. I think it's a recruitment agency. Am I going to get, I hope I get canceled for this. Anyway, so font's a bit big to make it smaller. I wonder if 4 works. Let's do 10 and then 4. All right, it's looking kind of good. And again, like at this point, we're just kind of making this regular web dev. If you rename container with div and then pretend that you've just got a design system that has text, like it's basically the same thing. So maybe we'll add a button as well, just for completeness. So I'm gonna have a container. It already knows what I want to do. That's crazy. Large language models. All right, and we'll give it a background color as well. So p.surface.interactive. Whoever came up with these names, man. And then, because this follows the rules of Flexbox, we're going to say align items start. No, we're going to say justify content start. No, it didn't work. How good's live coding? Anyway, I'm trying to just make a button. So let's do this. Just more divs. More divs will get us where we need to go. All right, awesome. Got it. And we're going to do this as inverse. With some padding. So padding X, let's say 10. Padding Y, say 6. Maybe. And we'll give it a really curvy border radius. Wait. It's the wrong element. All right, cool. So good. I wonder why get started is not, I think there's a transform, translate. Let's see. Anyway, it's not very nice. That's fine. Good enough. So basic premise, you can make 3D stuff and 3D UIs with UIKit, which is a Poimander's React-3 package using, oh, my keynote ended. I guess that's it. All right, whatever. We're just going to go full screen with all of VS Code. So react-three-fibre, UIKit, 2 very interesting up-and-coming libraries. UIKit more, react-three-fibre has been around for a while. But yeah, you can make some pretty cool stuff. So, well, I guess we'll just keep going. This is a, if you're wondering, like, what is this white dot, potentially? It turns out that it's actually another 3D scene being rendered into a texture. So we've got a type error here, so we can just go and fix that by making it pink. But if we go back, again, it's a scene rendering to a texture, it's now there. So if I wanted to try and just flesh something out real quick, well, I can duplicate it. I can then move it with, I don't want to move that one. Move it with some controls. Might duplicate it again, move it over here. Make it a little bit bigger. It's too big. Anyway, and then I can save, and again, goes back to source code, and then now I've got something kind of going. It's basically, we're basically done. It looks like this, you know. And yeah, maybe I'll put a ring just for good measure. So again, we can go into the editor and make changes. We can go into the text editor and make changes. It doesn't really matter. It always syncs back up to where it needs to be. So we've got our little UIKit component. It's looking gorgeous. It's production ready, ready to go. Now what are we going to do? Well, we can go back into the other scene and then crack that open. So if I open that, you'll see that it's a little bit bigger. And again, we've got a scene, but it's all dreary and not very interesting. So again, we can open this and start just fixing stuff. So I am going to go into my code right now because I think that's going to be the most productive. And I'm just going to slap pink on everything. Gorgeous. Look at that. And if I wanted to, we're able to, again, move the lights where we need. If you imagine trying to do this in code, you'd literally go insane. Like, there's no way that you'd ever want to do that. But with a visual editor, it's actually quite easy. And I think much more compelling than regular web development. Tools like Codex, where they're trying to bridge the gap between design and development and kind of get developers into the mix into there. I don't know if our current generation is interested in that, to be honest. Maybe the next generation will be. But for 3D, like it's literally impossible to do anything. So much more compelling, I think. Yeah, so what else? There's also cameras, and I'll, in a second, because I don't want to take all the time in the evening, but you're able to play the scene and see things as well. So for example, if I went through the default camera, I'm now viewing through a custom-made camera. So for example, if I were to move this camera just away a little bit, maybe rotate it around over there, save it, go back, I'm now viewing through the new position. And again, it's very tight iteration loops to try and get things looking good. It's not trying to take all, I guess, your development time. It's supposed to be a nice mix of, you'll be sometimes in code, sometimes in the editor. And if you're not, if you're an artist or a designer and you're not fully comfortable with code, you don't have to do it in code. You can do it mostly in the visual editor as well. But the idea is to try and bridge the gap and bring everyone just a little bit closer. So if we had more time and patience, we'd eventually get to something that looks like this. I think this one, I think we got somewhat better, to be honest. Fantastic. But if we just pretended just for a second that we were here all night and you saw I'm just going to close everything and reopen it. Bam. So I just did all this now. You saw me doing live coding and it's all beautiful. So the neat thing, not just about react-three-fibre, but a visual editor, is you can kind of take, like if you're a React developer today and you wanted to dabble in 3D, like there's nothing stopping you just getting involved a little bit and just putting in some React state, using some components from Dre as well. I didn't really touch on that, but it's a very cool library, a pairing library of react-three-fibre, where they come with a lot of, let's say, unique abstractions to help you be productive and, most importantly, not have to reinvent the wheel. So now, for example, if I focus on this element, you'll see it's slightly floating. And I didn't code that. I didn't have to code that, right? That was all thanks to wrapping the mesh with a float component, and that's it. Neat. And having idiomatic React and allowing you to compose different things together based on, your understanding that it's going to give you a piece of behavior, and then that's it. You don't have to worry about the internal implementations. Fantastic. Unheard of with vanilla APIs. So yeah, getting to the end, I would imagine. What's the last thing? So you're also able to do physics, and I think that's a pretty neat thing as well. So for example, if I click this button, the scene is going to drop. Amazing. I coded every frame myself.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's from Zoo. I was like, what is it? Anyway, and they're able to reset the scene. So yeah. it's in essence, it's as deep and wide as you want. But I think we shouldn't really be worried too much about the really nitty gritty. How does this fundamentally work at a glance? If any of you use React on the daily, I definitely recommend just having a dig with Triplex. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much.
Wow, that was fantastic, Kai. Doing that it's phenomenal. I apologize for suggesting you might work for Triplex, but and not for Atlassian, which is of course a much larger entity. Did you know that Tal Show actually is short for Talent Showcase, which is an Indian company which takes great pains to showcase developers using their talent to showcase their potential to work with other people.
There you go.
Sam, can you have a look around the room, please, and find out if there's anyone in the room who would like to ask a question of Michael before we get a chance to move on?
Yep, we definitely do.
Fantastic.
Hello, Michael Dougal.
Andrew Campbell.
I've
never seen this man in my life.
I guess like the big pitch for Triplex writers is for a lot of flows for, say, game dev and things like that. These editors exist. There's Unity and Unreal and all these other tools that have a similar kind of UI and interface. Like, what features do you want to build that are not in Triplex yet? Like, what capabilities do you think are necessary for it to be useful at that kind of scale? Is it really pitched at that? What's the next steps?
Yeah, sick. What a good question. And I swear he wasn't a placed person. Seriously though. Anyway.
Neat.
Yeah, I mean, so Triplex really wants to aim to be the productive thing that you just wouldn't use without it, I suppose. Like if you're using react-three-fibre, there's no way I would ever build without also using Triplex. And that means that it needs to have a very good scale up story, but it also needs to have a very good scale down story. And I think right now we've done very good, and by we, I mean, it's just me. But people think there's a team behind this, so that's cool, I guess. Right now, it does a very good scale down story, right? So every component can be opened in isolation. I can go around, find things, open them, iterate on components in isolation, and have a very productive story. But when it comes to trying to fit all of that together into a single project, say, I want to play my project. I don't want to play just a component anymore. Like right now, you're able to, if we go back to this one. So like right now, I can play this scene. It becomes interactive. I can interact with it, do things, test it, reset it, pause it, go back to edit mode. And that's all very effective. But it is still just a component in isolation. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I have of people using Triplex is they have something a little bit larger that they want to be able to play. So in essence, they want to point to an entry point and kind of take over the main responsibility of rendering it. So think about any entry point of a web app. You just want to play your website, basically. Play it, see everything working, edit things if you need, and stop. So right now we have a very good scale down case, but we need to do better for the scale up case. And in essence, that means almost an uncontrolled mode for Triplex, where you say, like, in a config right now, you're able to tell it or teach it, like, here's all the components that I'm interested in, and here's all the files and the main differentiation. And I can actually just show you this in the app, to be honest. 2 seconds. So yeah, I made an Electron app before I made the VS Code extension. So it's just loading. So the premise is components are things that you can add to the scene. So since I'm in the app, the use case is I'm less of a coder, right? So I can add different elements to the scene. So for example, all these components that I've defined here in this glob become available in this option. So if, like, I can add a circle, for example, and then go to it and just do stuff with it, right? I didn't have to write code for that. And then files, of course, is just every component that you want to make available. So like scaled down, very good. But ideally, there needs to be a point where I say, my entry point is, blah.tsx or blah.ts or whatever. And kind of hand over the reins of, you need to render the canvas, you need to bootstrap your app, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And there might be a little bit of extra setup by nature of how web development works today. But by doing so, you get a more, let's say, end-to-end experience of, I've opened my website or I've opened my app. I click play and I'm actually just in the app now rather than just still inside a single component. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing outside of just, productivity features and making things more resilient. Yeah.
One follow-up question. Is it possible? Like, could someone create like an animation tool or something like that to like integrate in?
I swear I didn't place him. I swear to you. No, but it will be. So for anyone who's ever tried to do a side project and have had kids, like my time has been dwindling. Like every day I have less time. I'm also having a second kid in October. Thank you. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm taking a lot of time off. So hopefully I can kind of balance that with doing something with this. But that's another big feature as well. So thanks for reminding me. Having a rich ecosystem of people just building stuff. So animation, for example, is such a big one and highly requested. There's also the concept of building nav meshes. If anyone's unfamiliar with what they are, I think of it as just like wayfinding. So in a map, you can kind of define where all the boundaries are, and then you can have a program like walk through it. And in essence, you need you bake a nav mesh to teach code like where the boundaries are. Otherwise, it just thinks like the world doesn't exist and it no clips through everything. And that's kind of a build step as well. So there's use cases, right, for that. And I find Triplex is a compelling centerpiece because, again, it controls saving code, editing code, updating, controls based on like persisted state to FS, and it could be source code, it could be a JSON file. But yeah, enabling that is definitely one of the next steps. I think that the two biggest forks in the road, well, it's not really forks in the road because it's going to meet back up, but like the whole entry point thing, the project mode, and then extensibility are going to be the two biggest bodies of work for sure.
Amazing. Can I quickly interject my question, actually? I assume you have like a use case that you built this tool for, right? Like this feels like a tool that is supporting building another project. I'm curious, like, Talk's seen in the past, I've seen you showed off like the D&D level editor. Was there like another project that you sort of built this for? Or?
Oh, yeah. Side projects on side projects, man. Like, dude. So I wanted to make a point and click game. So you can like go around and click stuff, and then I can, put this here and step on it and get this one. And when I was making this, I'm like, my God, this is difficult to just flesh out. Ludicrous. And then I started making a visual editor, and I've never come back to it. So it's a witty reference. Whoever did this is hilarious. Yeah. So that's my story. Started making a game when I was on early paternity leave, and then late paternity leave, I was making a visual editor for react-three-fibre. Yeah.
Have you managed to use it back for the game yet?
Next question, please.
Someone up front.
One last question.
Yep.
Thank you, Anastasia. I want to have a question. How many elements you can have in a scene? Then you will see like performance goes down.
I mean, it really depends on two things, I guess. One is how big the React scene is, and another one is how big the Three.js scene is. So for React, like any app, like if you've got 100,000 components and they all need to re-render at the same time, it's going to be slow. I think tools like the React compiler will make it better because it can try and be more granular about what will change, but fundamentally less rendering components will always be more performant. And then for Three.js, in essence, it's how many draw calls are being sent to the GPU to say render X, Y, and Z. And if I were to, at least right now, like duplicate this circle like 10,000 times, it's probably going to be really unperformant, purely because that's 10,000 draw calls. But it has a tool called instancing where you can say if it's using the same model, you can have like 100 or 10,000 and it's just one draw call because it's just a single thing that's just, as far as the GPU is concerned, just it's all the same thing, just placed in other places, right? So yes.
But if there is a functionality when you can, if you don't see these elements, they will be undeployed from a scene, so you like you will improve like performance.
Yeah, well, so I mean, for those unfamiliar with Three.js, it's a library made by a bloke on the internet called Mr. Doob, and it's one of the longest running, if not the longest running, most popular 3D library on the web, right? So there is like I can't remember what they call it, something culling. There's a phrase, the word before it, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, there is forms of that, but like if it's outside of the viewport and by nature of how vertex shaders work, if it's outside of the frosting of the camera, then it's not rendered. But there's like other like optimizations that I don't believe it does by default. That more like agencies and more well-established companies kind of make their own stuff. Like at the end of the day, Three.js is a 3D renderer. It's not a game engine. And that comes with pros and cons. It's kind of like, you know, imagine React being the view layer, but it didn't really have any opinions of state management or styling or something, right? So it's kind of the same thing, which is maybe why they work so well together. But yeah, like there comes other things, and generally you find people in the ecosystem are creating their own solutions to this or using third-party libraries like react-three-fibre, Dre. So for example, if I do this one, again, this library is a very popular library that just has a lot of fun abstractions that you can do things with, like a lot of abstractions. And it's kind of one of the neat things that React-three-fibre did, which is create an ecosystem instead of like individual things. So people coming together, sharing expertise and implementations, and yeah.
Thank you.
Can we please thank Michael for his time? It was a fantastic